Hey everybody, I'm Michael Prentke, and this is the Bos Bones podcast. And I'm super excited to have a Mr. Ray Greene here today. So, bravo to him,
Yeah.
Ray Greene. So how's it going, Ray?
It's going very well, Michael. Obviously we're all trying to make it through the best way we can with everything that's happening, and of course keeping our fellow Americans and everyone in mind as we go through the beginning of this new year. But I have to say that I'm holding my own pretty well. I'm glad to say, but at the
Good.
same time, keeping abreast of what's happening in the world at the same time.
It's a fine dance we all have to do, but I
Absolutely.
totally hear that.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to say that your presence in the city was completely unknown to me. So it was kind of a curveball when I learned that there's this total badass living in the city, this trombone guy, and I'd never heard of you. So I was really kind of taken aback. My close friend Brian Paulding, who I recently
Hmm.
interviewed for the podcast, he's a trombonist in town. We were hanging out one day and I was talking to him about the podcast. I'm like, oh, I think it'd be really fun, really cool to try and interview as many Boston trombonists as I can. And
Hmm.
he told me, he was like, Michael, have you heard about this guy? I don't remember his name, but I think there's this Boston trombonist who is playing with Santana. And I was like, what? What is this? And he said that I don't know if you know about this school, Zoomix. There's this music school called Zoomix. They do like a lot of community work. It's a really great organization. But Zoomix got tickets to the Santana show. So
Oh
Brian went
wow.
along with Zoomix, and I guess he went backstage or something, and he may or may not have met you. But that's how I learned about you, was through Brian, who went to the Santana show with Zoomix. So
Oh, that's funny.
I'm really glad to have learned about you through that. And I guess to start, um, what was your connection to Boston? Did you grow up here, or how long have you lived here?
I've been here at this point most of my adult life, but I was born and raised down south. I'm a Georgia boy, and Berklee College of Music brought me to Boston, long,
Mm.
long time ago. And the plan was to get my degree from school, from Berklee, and go back down south, and figure it out from there. But once I got to Boston, man, and went through school and then got a chance to work, as a musician, I started a family here and everything. So, Boston has a way of just sort of keeping you around, so to speak. And so I still go home, once or twice a year or so. But that's my story from coming to Boston. I've just grew up down south, born down south, but came here for school, and I've just been here since then. So yeah,
Wow,
but
that's amazing.
Berklee, Berklee College of Music is what brought me here.
Do you mind if I ask, when were you at Berklee?
I came up way back. I ended up getting my degree in '96, but I was here before that. Left and went did a little bit of work on the road. I was on the road for a bit, and then came back and got my degree. So I was around like '80s, '90s, '96, mid '90s when I got my degree from here. But I was here before that as well.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a pretty common story I've heard from Berklee. A lot of people who go into Berklee and then they leave for sometimes years and are touring and working and then
Yeah,
come back kind of in and out. So I guess
yeah,
that's yours too.
yeah. I think the sort of the thing as you said about going in, coming in, getting some classes, going out, leaving, coming back in. I don't know how many people actually come back and stick around long enough to graduate, though. When I was there, at least when I was there, people would come in and spend a semester or two, maybe a year or two at the most, and leave and just be gone.
Right.
But I figured for me, since I was here, I didn't finish my first time, but I was still living in the area. And so I had put so much time in. I was pretty close. I was within a year or so of graduating.
Mhm.
And I felt that since I was still living here, why not go ahead and, finish the extra credits and get it done? So that's why I decided to go ahead and get it done, mainly because I had spent so much time and and I was still in the area. I can understand how people who come in and spend a little time and then leave, but then they move to LA or move to wherever. And so it's a little bit more difficult, but I was right here in the backyard. So it didn't make sense for me not to go ahead and pursue it and get it done. So I was glad I did.
Yeah. And did you ever move or think about moving to New York or LA or any of those other cities that are more notable music hubs?
Absolutely. Probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, late 90s, I think. I came very close to moving to LA. I had a writing partner out there, and he was saying, come on out, we'll find a job and do your thing out here. And I had a young family at the time too, so if I was going to make the move, that would have definitely been the time to go. But LA was the spot that I was thinking about at that time. And then most recently, my wife and I were almost going to make the move to the West Coast again within the last 2 or 3 years, because I was out there all the time. When I was with Tower Power, and I was in LA all the time my first year with them. And so she and I thought about making the move then, and we've also thought about moving back to my home area of Atlanta, Georgia. So all those nice cities, we've thought about, but Boston, has been a great city for me and for us. And so I haven't had any regrets about not making the move. And it's still on the table. Who knows?
Sure.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows what could happen next year or two,
What about Boston has been so great for you?
Oh man. Well, first coming here, when I first got here for school, I think because I was immediately immersed into a music scene. I was thrown into a scene. Berklee had its own scene at the time. And it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. Growing up in a small town in Georgia, it's that whole syndrome of the big fish, little pond kind of thing. But when I came up to Berklee and came up to Boston, you look around, and at that time everybody was killing on their instruments, and I think what made the biggest difference for me, as far as staying, was that I was able to work. I never had any grand dreams about being this big, huge music star ever. I can remember specifically saying to myself, the only thing I ever wanted to do was to be able to make a living, pay my bills, just doing music. That was it. So I never had these grand ideas about what I wanted to do with my music. I always loved it. Performing, I always loved performing. And so when I thought about it, and when I think back on it even now, I was able to just make a living doing nothing but music. And I've always been able to do that pretty much. Obviously there's been some rough patches along the way, but I've always been able to work, whether it was, doing the local scene, the club scene for a little while. Then I sort of did the GB thing for a long time. I traveled to New York, I traveled to Vegas, I go to LA, but I'd always come back to Boston. So there was always a scene for me here to be able to make a living doing just music. And I think that's really what kept me. And then I met my wife, and then I had kids, and then so you go on from there, sort of thing.
Sure, settle down.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, as a fellow player, I know what you mean by GB, but
Mm-hmm.
for people who are listening who might not know, can you describe what GB has been for you? What is GB?
Man, well, I mean, it's general business, which weddings, corporate functions, parties, bar mitzvahs, that sort of thing. And I mean, GB, general business, that whole world was just like so foreign to me, especially when I started to really work in Boston as a musician, because I was doing mostly clubs for a long time. And I was asked by this this guy who runs a business. It's a business at this point, the General Business Band at that time. And he asked me if I would be interested in joining the group because they were looking to add a male singer. And they had been pretty successful up until that point. But man, Michael, I was like, GB, because of what I'd heard about it, and what I'd seen, with the bow ties and the tuxedos. And it just seemed like the worst. It was the worst thing. I wanted nothing to do with it. And so I told him no. I was like, I don't think it's really for me, because I was doing the club thing, and you kind of get used to wearing your own little clothes, and it's grimy and sweaty, and GB was the opposite of that for me. I didn't see it as that, and so I told him no. But he said, "Well, let me do me a favor. Let me send you a copy of our upcoming schedule. You can look at the schedule and then tell me what you think." I said, "Okay, that's fine." So he faxed me a copy of the schedule. We were using fax machines at the time. And I'm looking at the schedule, and the guy there were just so many dates, so many gigs that they had booked already. And keep in mind, with my club band that I was in at that time, we were still working 3 or 4 nights a week during the summertime. But as the year would get, as the weather would start to change or get colder or whatever, the gigs would start to get a little slower. And so I'm looking at all these dates and I'm thinking, wow, there's a lot I could do as far as taking care of my responsibilities as husband, father, all this sort of thing. Because that's sort of what you have to look at as a musician. Yeah, there's that part about being able to play and you're being able to pursue your dreams and all these sorts of things. But then there's also the realistic part of what we do, in that you still have bills, you still have a mortgage, you still have all these other things. So as I'm looking at the schedule, I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's so much I could do to take care of my family by doing this particular gig. And so I went and I checked it out. And I think what struck me about that particular band is that the cats were burning. They were great players. And it was nothing, and so much credit to the leader of that group at the time. He didn't approach it as the standard general business function band. He didn't have us wear the tuxedos with the penguin suits, I guess they were calling them, with the bow ties. He was like, no, we're gonna wear suits, nice suit, nice tie. And so there was a bit of an edge to it that was different from what my impression of what general business was at that time. And the biggest thing for me, though, is that the cats were burning players. They were smoking players. And that's really why I lasted as long as I did, because there was an integrity to what was being played on the stage. It wasn't just a bunch of guys up there just going through the motions as I had always envisioned it to be. It was cats who were really digging in, and the music mattered. It's GB, but it's still music too. And so I think we all sort of shared a common idea as to how can we make this as great as it possibly can be. And I think that's what really helped me to survive for as long as I did. And I still love it. Even when I'm not on the road now, when I come home, if there's work, if the guys call me to do something, I'm glad to do it, because it is still a chance to play. It's still a chance to play with some great musicians, which is what it's all about for me, first and foremost.
Sure. So when you're talking about your GB experience, were you sort of straddling the line of like trombonist and vocalist, or was it more one or the other, or what were you doing?
No, it was both. And as a matter of fact, I believe that's sort of what helped them to definitely want to bring me in, because I did have, this sort of dual threat sort of thing going on. And it was cool, man, because, I'd sing the tunes or whatever, and we had the saxophone player, Joe Cunningham, who was in the band. And so I'd be singing, if we're doing Earth, Wind, and Fire song, I'm singing all the stuff. And then there's these smoking horn lines that come in, and I get to pick up my horn, and so he and I are doing these great lines at the same time. So just great, man. My memories of it are great. And as I said, I still do it now when I'm around, and if I'm free, and they need somebody to come in, I'll still do it now too. And but those horn lines, man, I love it. I came through Berklee playing horn lines. I wasn't singing much at Berklee. I was doing like, the horn thing, playing like in funk bands and all the different types of ensembles. And so I think that's what really helped me to gravitate towards being able to make sure I'm on top of both. So when I'm playing my trombone, I'm not a singer who plays trombone. I like to think of myself as a trombonist when I'm playing my horn, so it matters. It means something, for sure.
Yeah.
And it looks cool, but that's not the reason I do it. It does look really cool though when the singer picks up a horn and starts playing.
Yeah.
But I think it's even more cool if the guy picks up the horn and he can really play. He's burning,
Yeah.
That makes me think that's even better.
It's the fine line between a kind of corny novelty and like a real show.
Exactly. No, and that's the word. I don't want it to be a novelty. It has to really mean something. It has to matter. So, and I think it does in most of the situations that I'm in. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I know in my own personal experience, I've done a bit of GB, not a ton, but I've found that as of recently, maybe people aren't as willing to spend as much money for a GB band,
Right.
And usually the horns are the first thing to go. What's your experience with GB been more recently over the past, I don't know, whatever, 5-10 years?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much the same, because I think that's what has been a benefit to me, because I'm a singer. I think people hire me now as a singer first. I think I'm more known now as being a vocalist, more so than a trombonist. But I think it has benefited me in the fact that they bring me in because I do both. I think if I was just playing horn, my experience would probably be very similar to yours, because as you said, I don't know how many people are looking to bring in, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-piece bands these days. I don't know. But I think because, I am a vocalist and I also play the horn, I think I'm probably being hired more because I'm a vocalist, but it's an added benefit because I do play trombone too. Yeah, so I've never really suffered for a lack of work, except for, as I said, there's been a couple of rough patches, of course, but for the most part, I've always been able to work.
I was wondering if you might be able to elaborate on what some of those rough patches were. What was that? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, the most recent, of course, was back in 07 to 08, when when we went through that whole thing where everybody was affected. I was doing the wedding band at that time, and it was before I started touring, and that was rough because as I said, everybody was going through this period where the work just went away. I know we were doing a lot of bar mitzvahs up to that point. We had a lot of Jewish clients at that point, and it was right around that time when the whole the Madoff thing went down. So we were affected by that. So I think between that and then some of the corporate issues, or corporate parties that we would have for Christmas times, a lot of companies that would hire us, over the years, that particular year, especially 08, I think it was. I think I remember somebody saying that we probably lost about 30% of our work at that time, which was, it was significant. Yeah. So that was the most recent one though. Well, no, this year, this year for everybody, right, has been the most recent. But before this year, I think 08 or so, I remember that was the year I decided to get my master's degree in business because I wanted to be. I said to myself, I will never go through this again, because the problem was there were no options. I felt I had no options. I was a musician. And so in any industry, when 35, 40% of your income just goes away, you're affected by that. And so I decided that year I went and I got my master's in business to sort of be ready for the next time something like that happened. And then here we are, but I'm not really doing anything with the master's in business.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So what um do you feel like the aside from this year, was the master's in business, was that an asset to you?
It hasn't been so far because I haven't really taken advantage of it.
Hmm.
Um, but knowledge is always good. It's always good to
Sure.
have that extra knowledge about different things, and that's just sort of something I've always, it was great for me to go do it. I have it in my hip pocket if I ever should need it. But I think what it showed me more than anything was how much I don't really like business. I
Hmm.
think that's what that going through that showed me. It was like an accelerated course that I took. So it took me about 18 months, 24 months or whatever. And I don't really like business, but you have to have some sort of a knowledge of it. You have to have an idea about how it works in order to do what we do, especially now, because we're so self-contained now with having to be on top of your social media and having to have, sometimes in these instances where you have employees now. And so there's all these different things that it was great for me to do that, to get that under my belt for sure.
Hmm.
So I do
Um
look at it as an asset to answer the question for sure.
sure. What
Yeah.
what don't you like about business? What did you learn about yourself?
Yeah. What I learned about myself going through it was that I just want to play, man. you know, I just want to play. That was the first thing I learned. And I think from what I see, it's the business of music that sort of takes, for me, it sort of takes it away from what music's intent is for society.
Hmm.
Again, you have to have that aspect of it. You have to have business. You have to have business sense. So I can't stress that part of it enough. But I think because I'm such a creative and I just want to be able to focus on playing, making music and creating music and interacting with the crowd. Not to say you can't do both, but I think for me it just sort of helped me to understand and realize what's most important for me as a musician, you know,
Hmm.
but needing that part of it as well as a part of your repertoire because you have to do it or else you have to pay someone to do it in a lot of cases.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could maybe back up. One of the things I'm particularly curious to talk and learn about is um, what Boston, the music and art scene looked like in the 80s and 90s. I've kind of heard from people that it's just kind of been steadily dwindling, and
Yeah.
even like up through the early 2000s, there was still like a pretty fair amount of activity, I've heard,
Yeah.
but it seems like it's really kind of down to, I don't know, like embers, or like just really taking a huge hit from where it used to be.
Right. I think the biggest thing is just having venues, having places to play. I think that's been the biggest difference that I've seen. Um, there were always places to play. There were always clubs to play, all different types of clubs. Um, and there were always a lot of bands. There's a lot of bands now. I think the GB scene, though, the general business scene, has sort of taken over what live music in Boston really used to be when it was a real scene. And I can remember my horn band, or the horn band that I was in at the time, there were probably 5, 6 different clubs that we used to play, if not more, on a regular basis, a consistent basis. And we'd pack the places, there'd always be places to play. There'd always be people looking to come out and hear live music. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I see is the avenues, the venues, they're no longer there the way they were back in the 90s for sure, even in the 80s for sure.
What were some of those venues? What were some of your favorite old venues?
Oh man, we used to, we used to play this place, One Pelham East. I'm sorry, that's down in Newport. That's Newport, Rhode Island. Newport and Rhode Island was a great scene too. But that place was actually in Newport. But the Tam O'Shanter over on Beacon Street, that was a place. Ed Burke's over on Huntington Ave was amazing. Great Scots we used to play. Those are the three main ones that come to mind, because we'd be in those places all the time. I'm sure there are others I just can't think of right now. But yeah, we packed those places, man, and we were there all the time. And yeah, fun, just big fun. I remember.
Hmm. You said a minute ago back when it was a real scene. What do you mean a real scene? What does that mean to you? Like what is a real scene?
I think a real scene is, people going out every weekend to hear a live band. And there are probably people still doing that now, but for me, there were three, four, five bands, and we'd all be rotating the same clubs. So if we were there one weekend, there was a band that we all knew that were coming the next weekend. So we all knew who the bands were. Um, the people used to come out. The clubs would be packed. Anywhere you'd go on a Friday or a Saturday night, you knew you were going to hear a live band. They were gonna be smoking. You'd hear horns, you could dance or whatever. That to me sort of typified what the scene was in Boston. And from what I understand, even before I even came up here in the '80s, even going back further than that, it was a bigger vibe even then, before then. But for us, for me, when I was in town, when we were really hitting it hard, that to me is what the scene was. Bands, clubs, people. Just a nightlife kind of thing. And people just partying, having a great time, listening to great live music. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? And it could be that now too. I'm just sort of, I feel like I'm kind of on the outside of it now. I haven't really been into the club scene that much the past several years. But it may possibly still be that on some level. I'm just not sure. I don't know.
Yeah. That what you're saying about the venues or lack thereof, I mean, I think almost everybody, I mean, all of the musicians I ever talked to, but also the ones in the podcast have been saying that kind of
Is that
just like
right?
hearing it over and over and over again. It seems like something that's
Yeah,
really kind of plaguing all of the
I
players,
see.
so the lack of places to play. I think
Yeah.
one interesting thing about the area here is that um, even though we talk about Boston, we're usually talking about the kind of greater Boston area and how there's
Mhm.
so many venues that aren't exactly technically Boston. So many in Cambridge or
Right.
Somerville or I don't know, even Brookline, or parts of Boston that aren't seen as downtown, but are definitely still part of Boston, like Dorchester,
Hmm.
Mattapan, Hyde Park, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm
Right.
wondering is thinking about like like downtown venues, ones that are in like Huntington, Boylston, Columbus, Mass Ave, like
Hmm.
that whole area. I heard they used to be really
Hmm.
hopping versus kind of going further and further out. What do you think about that?
As far as being Boston proper clubs,
Yeah, or
because
just like kind of starting to go to the outskirts and things.
yeah, I mean, because there's a couple places that when I first started to play out live, there was this place that was right down at Faneuil Hall, downstairs. I forget the name of it though. I want to say City Side or something like that. But it was
Hmm.
downstairs. It was in right in Faneuil Hall, and we'd go down. We were playing down there all the time because it was one of the first places we started to play. And then later on in my career, being in Boston, there was another place that was also close to Faneuil Hall, where another band that would play every Thursday nights. I'd play over there, and so there was a real nice energy down immediately downtown Boston. But I think probably these places look to move outside of the downtown area for. I mean, it could be even something as simple as like parking. Just little things like that. Just easier to get to as they sort of move as these places move away from the immediate downtown area, less crowded, I guess, if you will. It's hard to say. I don't really know. It's not really a lot of thought I put into that one. But I think I know in a lot of places that I've played in town, I can play in one area, which is over like just outside of Boston on in Tremont Street area. I'd play often and get a great crowd. Great people would come down. But if I'd go down and play, say at Rose Wharf, for instance, those same people are not necessarily going to come see me there. There's this gig that I was doing every summer at the Boston Harbor Hotel outside, great venue.
Are you talking about that
And
little
so,
like dock, the floating island they have in the
yeah,
back? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, we do that like 2, 3 times during the summer, you know.
Hmm.
And so I'd noticed that when I play at a place, you know, which is maybe over in Columbus Ave, over off of Mass Ave in town, that same crowd is not necessarily going to come see me playing down at Boston Harbor Hotel. And so I think it's just sort of that thing. And I sort of tried to be intentional in the fact that I would go where the people are. So the place is one place that we started to play with my 5-piece band called Slades over on Columbus Avenue.
Sure.
I wanted to be in that area, so I was intentional about booking gigs over there because I wanted to that part of town I wanted to be more exposed to because I didn't feel at that time that the people that lived in those areas really knew who I was. So we wanted to make sure we go over there because we knew that the crowds that we wanted to appeal to would come to see us there, but not all the time would that same crowd come see us play somewhere else. So that's kind of been my experience with that.
I think one thing that's coming to mind as you're saying all this is it feels like you're almost beating around the bush, and I want to kind of say it point blank. It sounds like you're talking about race, a racial sort of issue and segregation, because you're talking about Tremont and Columbus and Slades, and that's Roxbury. And
Yeah,
I love Slades. I've been there a lot, and I know the community, and
yeah,
that's a black bar.
yeah,
That's a black community for sure.
right.
And I think I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago with what was it that the Boston Globe was trying to do some kind of like I don't know racial spotlight sort of series in their newspaper, and I don't know, it became more of a piece of public discourse
Hmm.
through the Boston Globe, and they were talking about it, and they were saying how like black Boston versus white Boston, white downtown, and how a lot of black
Mm-hmm.
folks were saying they didn't feel safe, they didn't feel good to go downtown. It just wasn't a safe or welcoming atmosphere. Um,
Yeah,
I'm wondering if you can maybe talk about that at all.
sure. Because what you're saying is true, and I've heard that for sure. I think what has been on the one hand that has been what has been good for us when I was doing the club scene for sure here in town. Um, I have heard people who would come to see us at Slaves because you're right. When we play over there, yeah, it's 95, 97, 98% African Americans, Black people who'd come see us in there. But we'd also have a sprinkling of white people that come see us there too because of the draw. But then conversely, when we play down at the Boston Harbor Hotel, it's the complete opposite. It's probably 95% white people who come, but then you'd also have some black people who'd also come to see us there too. Um, I think for me though, Michael, to be honest with you, I have never really put a lot of thought into where we play. I mean, I did mention being intentional about going to play at Slays and playing in that area because I wanted to be exposed to that specific demographic. But I think when I think about it and when I look at it, um, I've never said to myself, I'll never play this place because of race or because I don't feel comfortable playing there. I mean, if I when I think about the demographic of the band that I've always been in or the bands that I've always surrounded myself with, it's always been mixed race, always. Um, Although when I first started to play at Slade's, and I don't even know if this was intentional, but when I first started to play there, it was with a four piece, and we were all black. It was all brothers. It was four of us. But then as I started to expand the band, going to Slade's, like the guitarist that I would bring in with me, Rob Martin, was white and was burning. But see, I never really put a lot of thought into that. I guess if I'm being truthful, though, it may cross your mind. What does this look like in the different places where we're playing? What are they seeing on stage? But I hope that it was just a fleeting thought, man, because for me, when you break it all down, and these things, these conversations and these discussions are vitally important. But in this particular space, talking about the music, the first and foremost, it's about appealing and um, touching the people who are there, black or white.
Sure.
I think so. I think that's the first thing that I think of. When I think about myself, I call myself a soul R&B artist, but that's not all that I do. So, but when you hear those terms, your mind probably automatically thinks black, African American, um, but I only put that label on myself because of the music that I love, and because what I love to sing and the music that I write is that. And I guess you could say that is based towards a certain demographic, but it's a tricky question for me. I'll be honest with you, and it's one that I'm sort of struggling to really pinpoint an answer on. But I definitely appreciate you asking the question, for sure, because I think these types of questions, these types of discussions are really important, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for your honesty and being vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, hmm.
Now, how about yourself? Now, what's it like for you? Like you said, you go to Slade. Now, do you go to Slade's to play, or are you there just hanging out, or
Both.
what's that experience like for you, playing in the front of that audience as opposed to playing in front of other audiences?
Yeah. I started to go to Slade's, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out of college for a couple of years and starting to feel kind of a rut. And I felt like I needed to expand my network. I wanted to see more venues, try and meet more musicians, just try and be on the scene. I was feeling personally kind of insular in what I was doing, playing with the same band, seeing the same people, which was great, but wanting more. And I didn't really know anything about Slades. I just remember somebody mentioning it. And I was like, oh, I know the area. Sure, I'll check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like magic. I happened to go there on a Tuesday, which I don't know if you know Frank Wilkins, but that
Of
was
course.
Frank Wilkins' vocal showcase. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's such a huge pillar in the scene and within that community. I mean, I think he's etched in stone. I think there's like a literal stone, like on the sidewalk. Somebody wrote a poem, and it's like Frank Wilkins is mentioned in the poem on the sidewalk.
Oh,
It's
wow.
He's a amazing figure. But I happened to go on a Tuesday, and I didn't want to be intrusive, so I don't think I played. I think I just watched, but it was what he calls his vocal showcase. So Frank and his band, they'll play an opening set, and then people just come up and sing. Just all the people at the bar come up and sing a tune. And I was like, wow, this is what a special place. So I had to go back. So I started going back and I started to meet the people. And maybe I had my trombone or something, but they were like, hey, like you play? Like, come on up. Like, you gotta play. So I would sit in on tunes while, like, maybe with Frank's band while they were doing their opening set, or maybe if one of the people was just going up to sing, they would just throw me a horn solo instead of maybe Frank taking the
Mm-hmm.
keys solo or something, and I would play. And
Mm-hmm.
they were they were such an incredible community, so warm, so embracing. And there was the host, Miss KC. Maybe you remember her,
Yes. Sure.
KC.
Sure.
She's amazing, and
Yeah.
they were so sweet. They said, Michael, come back, keep coming back, keep coming back. Frank was very warm with me. Said, Michael, just keep coming, keep coming, keep playing. You're playing great. You're doing great.
Mhm.
The community there was, I think, they probably thought it was a little bit weird. Like, who's this young white guy? Like, what's his deal? But but I think I just sort of, I was polite and respectful. I wasn't weird. I was just kind of hanging out, and I started going, so people started to recognize me, and I started to meet the folks there, and the amazing musicians and singers, and just the people who were hanging out, and the staff who were there. Is a really special place, and the DJs and people were dancing between the live music, and
Right.
so yeah, it's a really special place.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess that's my experience with Slades, but it's also, within my experience, an older community.
Yes.
Most of the folks who are still going there, and it's super regular folks every week. They're there.
Right.
They're older folks.
Yeah.
Probably mostly like 50s and up for the most
Right.
part.
Right.
Some younger folks come around, but not a lot. But
Right.
also the food. Shout out to Slate's
Woo.
food. Oh,
No
man.
doubt.
Yeah. Actually, one funny story. I wanted to get their fried okra one time. I was in the area. I was with my partner Celine, who she's mixed. She's white and Chinese, and we were with another white friend, a really tall woman. She's like my height. She's about 6'4", 6'5". So
Wow.
the three of us walked into Slade's, and it was a Wednesday, which is comedy night. Oh my God. We walked in the middle of the set, these three people sticking out like a sore thumb, this giant, massive white lady, and me. I'm also huge, and just in the middle of the set, they grilled us. Oh my God. We're just trying to get some fried okra, and yeah.
That's funny.
Okay, just go in the back, just trying to get some okra. Oh man, that was funny.
That's pretty funny. That's funny.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a short break, so grab a snack, play some long tones, and we'll be back in a minute. Now, back to the show. But yeah, gotta love Slade's. Great spot.
Yeah, for sure. Now, did you grow up in the area?
I did grow up in the area. I grew up
Okay.
an hour south on the South Shore.
Okay.
Moved around a bit as a kid. I lived in Hingham and also Hanover. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was fine. Suburban towns.
Sure.
I don't go back much. My dad's in New Jersey now, and my mom has since moved to Plymouth. So
Okay.
I don't really have much reason to go back there.
I see.
Don't go back.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up in the area.
I love that area though. That Hingham, Plymouth area, Hanover. That's a nice area. I live in Randolph. My wife and I live in Randolph now.
Okay.
And yeah, and that area there is really nice to drive through, and
Beautiful along the coast.
yeah, very
and all that.
yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say sometimes I still like to go for walks at World's End, the park, and Hingham, and the beaches there are really nice.
Right.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. Maybe we can talk about what was your segue from clubs to stadiums? How did you make that jump?
No, well, it was clubs to GB to stadiums, because I did GB for a long time after clubs. Yeah, once I started doing the wedding scene, my club stuff sort of dissipated, sort of went away. And so I was doing weddings with this band for a long time, and I had heard that Tower of Power was going to be looking for a lead singer, and and to sort of backtrack, T.O.P. I had never heard of before my Berklee days, and once I experienced them at Berklee, it was just like, forget about it. It was everything for me. Those horns, those tunes, that singer at the time, Lenny Williams, it was everything that it just encapsulated everything that I felt like who I was as a musician. That was it. So that was all the way through Berklee. But so this opportunity had come up, going back to like 2013, I guess it was. I had heard, that they were going to be looking for a singer because their guy was going to be leaving. And they were going to have like open auditions, all over the country or something. And so I wasn't really, to be honest, interested in doing like a cattle call situation, being a part of anything like that. I was intrigued that they were looking, but I didn't really see myself driving out to wherever they were going to be having auditions, or I just didn't see myself as being a part of that. I got a note though from a guy who hit me up, sent me an email, and he's like, "Listen, this is your gig. This should be your gig," he said to me. And he said, "I'm personal friends with these guys. Here's Emilio's direct email. Here's Emilio's direct phone number. So, at least send them something and, look into it at least." I said, okay, but I was very just sort of nonchalant about it because it wasn't really something I had thought about. I just saw the post that they had put out about the singer, and I saw it. I was like, interesting. And that was it for me. But then once I got this post from this guy, it made me then think a little bit more serious, because now it's not like I'm just sending something out into the atmosphere that will never get heard from again. Now I have a direct path, to the guy who's going to be making the decision. And so that's what I did. So I sent him some I think I had some YouTube clips and I had some MP3s or something that I sent down to him. And it was funny because I remember it was like August 13th or something. I mean, I had sent this back in July. I sent this to Emilio. And I think it was like August 13th, I was on a wedding gig on a break. So I was probably eating a piece of chicken or something because that's what you do on wedding gigs. So I'm on this wedding gig, I'm on a break, and I get a phone call. And it's from Emilio Castillo from Tower of Power.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. And I'm not a cussing man. So he said, "Listen, I got all your materials. Thanks for sending this over." And he said, "We have a show coming up in September. It's like going to be September the 27th. It's like 6 weeks away." And he said, "Our singer, the guy who was leaving, can't make that particular gig." And he said, "And we've called, 2 or 3, maybe even 4 previous singers to see if they can do this show. Nobody can do this show with us." And he said, "But I'm reaching out to you to see if it's something that you might be interested in." And, obviously I'm thinking, you don't really know me. You've heard some MP3s, you've seen some YouTube clips, but you don't know if I can do this gig or not. And I remember this specifically. He said, "And I want you to know that this is not an audition. We're just asking you to help us out." And when he said that to me, it took a ton of pressure away, because if I had been in audition mode to do this, it would have meant something completely different to me. But if it's just, okay, I'm just going to help some guys out. And so it just put me in a more relaxed frame of mind as opposed to going in as an audition. And it was really cool because here was going to be an opportunity. These guys would see me working in audience. They'd hear me doing fast songs, slow songs. They see me getting a chance to interact with the band, separate from going in as auditioning because I have to focus in on, so it was a whole different thing. Once I got a chance to go in with that frame of mind. And so I had 6 weeks, and he sent me all the material that I was going to need to learn the show. So, and my wife, I was listening to this stuff every day for 6 weeks because I wanted to learn this show. It was a 1 hour show. And so she could sing every song without lyrics because she heard every riff. Yep. And so that was really the beginning of it, to be honest with you. Getting a chance to go and work with these guys like that, man. And I remember the night like it was just a couple of days ago. It was my first time, and it was going to be down in Morristown, New Jersey, at this beautiful theater down there. And so I remember that whole week, I was stressing it. And the night before, it was going to be it was a Friday night. The gig was on a Friday night. And I remember the Thursday night prior to that, I had a GB gig. So I was playing, I was playing a gig. I think it was for like a bunch of lawyers or something at one of the hotels downtown. And, I don't know how much GB you've done, but it really becomes, in a situation like that, it's a corporate party, but it's a bunch of lawyers. So I think they were really there to just kind of schmooze and this kind of thing. I don't think they were there to party, if you will. So I remember this thinking, oh man, it's Thursday night. I'm at this gig, this GB gig. It's not really happening. The people are not really into it. That's Thursday night. Friday night, I'm on a flight to Morristown, New Jersey, to go do a show with Tower of Power, who are like my college heroes. And so it was just too much. It was too much. And then Saturday night after that, I'm back in Boston, first flight back to Boston, because I got a wedding on Saturday night. And that was my week. It was unbelievable that week. I still remember it. And I got sick that week. I remember getting like some sort of cold or something happened to my throat. My wife swears that it was nerves and that I just got this, just this psychosomatic thing. But I remember getting sick. But that weekend, that whole week was just, it was mind blowing. And so I did the show with them that night, and it was great. I know my wife she says that she was more nervous than I was. She knew she was, because she came down, she drove down with her sister and stuff. And I had a good friend of mine who also drove down separately to support me. And it was magical, man. We did the show, and everyone seemed to be pleased with what I was doing. I was on cloud 9, of course, because here I am on stage, and I just worked with Tower of Power. I just did a show with Tower of Power,
Yeah.
And it was just so crazy though, because as I said, I flew down that Friday morning and went to the hotel and hung out there for a couple of hours or whatever, and went downstairs to meet them. So I met them all for the first time in the van on the way to sound check for a gig that night. Yeah. So it was, but 6 weeks of preparation, man, that was the key. You get the opportunity. You have to make sure you're prepared. And that's always like the lesson that I try to pass on to folks. It's one thing to have the opportunity, but you gotta be prepared for that opportunity. And so I didn't take it for granted. I had those 6 weeks, and it was very important for me to do that show as if I'm not here as a sub. I'm here as a person who's a part of the band. You have to approach it like that. So I didn't want to go up there and have like the lyrics, because Emilio said to me, feel free to have the lyrics, it's okay. I was like, I can't do it, man. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
There's no way I could emote and do that show the way they deserved and the way the audience deserved by standing there reading lyrics, I couldn't do it. So I met all of them on the way to the venue for the sound check, and we did the show and everything. It was great. It went well, and Emilio actually called me the following week, um, and he asked, so we all loved you, we thought it was great, and they wanted to know if I'd be interested in joining the band. And I asked him for a night to think about, and talk to my wife about it and stuff, and we prayed and all that kind of stuff. And so it was on my birthday, October 28th, when I took the gig with those guys. I said, yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. What a birthday gift.
Yes, it was a great gift, tremendous gift.
What was that like trying to make that decision? What were you thinking about the factors and all that?
Yeah, to be honest with you though, Michael, it really wasn't much of a decision to be made. I mean, I had been in Boston for a long, long, long time doing, different things, and I was cool. I was happy doing what I was doing here. Put two babies through daughters through college doing this. Um, and so I had a tremendous career here in Boston, even before Tower Power. But it's all the things which you can't really completely prepare for, as far as the travel. As I was making my decision if I was going to join or not, that wasn't really one of the things. Now, Emilio did say to me, he did say, now we're gone 200 days out of the year. And, between travel and shows. So yeah, obviously that's one thing, but then even financial considerations, it was going to be a tremendous boost for me as far as the exposure around the world. But from a financial perspective, it wasn't everything that I had thought it would, a gig like that would be. It was
Really?
cool. Yeah, it was really cool, but not so far from what I was able to do here in Boston, financially speaking. I was able, so
Wow.
it just goes to show that here I was doing pretty well. I really was doing pretty well being here in Boston. And so getting a gig like that, but I think to go past just the, what you're making, your salary or anything like that, it's all the other things too. As I mentioned, the exposure to people all over the world. It's getting a chance to work with a legacy act like Tower Power, who were, heroes of mine. Um, and I think for my wife and myself, it was okay. What is this going to mean for us? Because she's used to me going off and doing a gig or whatever, and then I'm coming back home that
Mm-hmm.
same night. And now I'm going to be gone for 2, 3 weeks at a time. That's a huge adjustment. It's a big
Yeah.
adjustment, and it wasn't something that she had signed on for.
Right.
So you have to take that part into consideration as well. Um, what's it going to mean, and a lot of the other things, and after that, health things. How do you take care of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, spiritually, physically? Being out on the road 200 days out of the year does not lend itself to focus and quality of life, and because we're on a tour bus for that time. And so there were all those things that ended up coming into it. But at the time when I was making the decision, it was like, wow, this is amazing. Tower Power, you're going to be touring, you're going to be doing what, people or who look at you and want, these people all want to be doing what you're about to be doing, so to speak. And so the decision at that time, when I first had to make it, it wasn't a huge decision. My wife and I looked at each other, and it was like, she said, yeah, you're doing it. And so that was pretty much it. And I think just because of what I had been doing, I've been in Boston for so long. What's the next thing for Ray Greene? And it was the next logical step. That opportunity coming to me was a logical next step for me at that time.
Yeah. That's great that your wife was so supportive and that you were able to do that. And were your
Yeah,
kids, were they, you said they were through college by that point, right?
they're already gone. Yeah, and that's
Mm-hmm.
another thing too, man, which I think about often, and how fortunate, because I don't know if I could have made the decision to go if I still had young kids here at the home. I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm glad I didn't have to though, because my girls, they're both, my baby in LA, she's doing great for herself now. She works at Google out there.
Wow.
My youngest daughter is in Hartford and she works for Wayfair as a recruiter. So they're both doing great. And
Mm.
I was your girl dad. I was a girl dad. So being a musician, I was always around during the day.
Hmm.
I would do the school. I'd take them to school. I'd pick them up from school. I'd have to prepare lunches and dinners and breakfast or whatever the case may be. So, and I loved it. So I don't know if they were still young kids, if I could have made that, it would have been way more difficult. I know that for a fact, even to the point where I don't even know if I would have gone. I probably would not have gone.
Yeah.
But again, glad I didn't have to make that decision. That decision.
Sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good timing.
yeah. The
So
timing was great.
so how many years were you with TOP, and how did you navigate that lifestyle change with your wife?
Just 2 years. It was short, man, and it flew by. Um, I think what helped us was the fact that she came out a lot.
Hmm.
She came out quite a bit. I think she and I determined that she probably saw about 40 shows in all in the 2 years that I was with them.
Wow.
And it was cool because, we'd go out to, when we'd have shows out in Seattle, she came out to Seattle to see some shows. Um, she came out to, when I'd be out on the West Coast in LA or wherever I'd be out there, she'd come to shows. She saw a lot of the shows we do out here on the East Coast, of course. And so I think that was a big help, the fact that she was able to come and hang out and meet the guys. So she became a part of the family, just like I was. And they adored her, so it helped. It helped. So it wasn't just Ray's out doing his thing. I think including her in it was a big plus for us,
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah.
But she never got on stage.
Never went on stage.
She knew the whole show. She could have.
She could have though. She could have done the show. She's a big music person. She loves music. She's not musically inclined or anything, but she loves music though. So
I,
big
I would
support, and it helps to have that for
I
sure.
would hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know how a non-music person could be with a music person. I don't know how that would ever work. This kind of lifestyle, you got to be
Yeah.
pretty into it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's become accustomed to having me around this year, um, because of what the circumstances has prevented us from being able to leave. And so, and she's still working. She's working from home. She works for a pharmaceutical company.
Hmm.
Um, so she's been able to continue to work from home, and she's gotten used to me being around. So it's going to be another swift adjustment when it is time for us to start working again. So I tell her now, I tease her, I say, enjoy me now because it's going to come to an end soon.
Yep. Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah.
you have
So,
any prospects? Do you have any idea of what that could look like for you post COVID?
yeah, I do feel that I think people have missed what we do for sure. I mean, I have such appreciation for all the virtual concerts and people who've taken advantage of that medium to do things. I think that's been great because it's just people stepping up to do what they need to do to make sure they sort of keep things going as best as they can. But I just feel you can't replicate what we do and what we bring to to people's lives. And I think there's once we start back up, from I had a Zoom yesterday with some of the Santana people, and they're saying August. Obviously no one can really say 100%, but seems like maybe late summer into the fall. There's a prospect for us or a chance for us to get back out there and on some sort of level get a chance to do concerts again. So we'll see. We'll see. We're just hopeful that we can get back to it.
Yeah. It is really strange but also interesting thinking about what the transition out of COVID will be like. I've been thinking
Yeah,
about how last summer it felt like, COVID was so new for us and everyone was trying to learn how to navigate it
right,
responsibly. And it felt like only by the end of the summer and the fall, we were sort of figuring out socially distanced performances outside in the
right,
best way. And then by that point, it was
right.
too cold to keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So I think,
exactly.
yeah, I think the summer is going to have more, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Right, for sure, for sure. I'm excited, man. I think it's just a question of being able to hopefully get the surges under control, get the numbers down, get the hospitalizations down, obviously get the number of people passing away, get all that down, get it completely eradicated if at all possible. And then just kind of being able to get some sense of what people need, which I think is just that interaction, man, that touch, being able to hug again, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm hopeful for, and that's what I'm excited for. It's been a very, very trying year. Obviously, I lost my father to the virus
Sorry.
back in
Condolences.
April. Yeah, thank you. And so I get firsthand of what it's meant, for so many of us. And but I still remain, um, as I said, hopeful and positive with what's on the horizon for society as we move forward into this thing.
Yeah. Hmm. What do you think? What does that mean for you when you say moving forward with society as we move forward with the thing?
Yeah, as I said, I think getting back to work for sure. My wife worries about me though because you know, she's only known me. She and I, we've been married now for coming up on 19 years, and she's only known me as a guy who goes out to perform every weekend. That's how
Mm.
she knows me. That's how she's known me. And then a guy who tours, who goes out and does tours all over the world. That's how she's known me. And so she sees me now all the time, and I'll walk in and she'll look at me and she's like, "You okay? You okay?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I really am. I really am cool. I feel like I've taken advantage of this time that's been forced upon us, to just work on some things, work on, obviously the playing I'm actually practicing trombone now, more so than just going off to do a show, because I hadn't actually practiced my horn for years and years. It's been a long time since I actually practiced. So I've been working on my Max Schlossberg, my etudes and all that sort of stuff. But what I think it'll mean for me, man, is just, yeah, getting a chance to once again go back and get to interact with people on a stage again, having to learn music again, getting a chance to meet people and perform for people. And it really is a huge part of who I am, I think, because I try not to dwell upon the fact that it's been taken away from us. I don't dwell on it. But yeah, man, I can't wait to get back to it because
Sure.
it's what I do, you know
Yeah.
and
Definitely.
it's been so tremendous for me. So I think that's what it means for me, just getting back to doing shows and meeting people and making good music, and and the camaraderie with the guys on stage.
Yeah. What you were saying just now makes me think of an interview I had with a woman named Vicky Garcia. She's a young trombonist in town. She's doing amazing in the classical world.
Mm-hmm.
She's subbing
Wow.
with the BSO,
Wow.
and yeah, she's doing great and freelancing a lot, doing classical stuff. Anyways, she was saying how it can be really tricky for her juggling being a freelancer and gigging, gigging, rehearsing, gigging, gigging, and then but not practicing and like sort of trying to juggle like, oh, like I have to practice here and I have to, well, like am I practicing for me or am I practicing for the gig, and like do I even
Right.
get to practice or am I just like rehearsing last night, now I have rehearsal today and a gig tonight, and just sort of
Yeah.
juggling these kinds of things. What's that been like for you?
It's so true though, man. And that's exactly what I'm saying because for so long, I mean, ever since I've started to play live or do concerts or do shows or do gigs or whatever, anytime I picked up my horn, it was to either learn music for a gig or it was to play the gig. But as you know, and for all of us, when you sit down to practice and actually work on your craft, that's way different than doing a show. It's completely different. It's completely different discipline altogether. And so that's what's been so tremendous during this time for me is getting a chance. I mean, I usually come down here to my music area at like midnight. I put my silencer mute in and that's the time, that's the time I get into. So I get a chance now to actually work on embouchures and I get a chance to work on like tone and pitch and sound and all these things and slide, get a chance to now work on because when you're in the heat of the battle, as I call it, when you're on a show, that
Yep.
stuff is flying, it's flying by you, man. And did I get that? And yeah, the
Yeah.
person next to you may have heard if you missed that note. And so
Yep.
this time now has been just crucial to get a chance to really focus in and hone in what it means to master the instrument. And that's what I've
Mm.
been doing. That's what it's meant for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you? Now, how's it been for you? Did you get a chance to practice or?
Yeah. Um, Here's kind of how I've been feeling about it. So I told you I graduated from NEC in 24, 2014. Wait,
Mhm.
2014 or yeah, 2014. Sorry, I don't know
Yeah.
how old I am. I graduated from NEC in 2014. I took a bunch of time off. I was feeling sort of a plateau, and I actually
Yeah.
went back for masters at NEC.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I went from 2018, and I just graduated this past spring 2020, right as the pandemic was starting. And I
Mhm.
guess I'm sort of prefacing with all this because honestly, I was so busy during the masters, I didn't
Yeah.
actually get to practice nearly as much as I'd like to. And now
Yeah.
that I have this stupid degree, I'm feeling bad. Like I should be way better. So, like, oh god damn it! I have a master's degree from NEC and a undergraduate from NEC. I need to be way better. So I've been very motivated. So I've been
Yeah.
practicing a lot at home.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, practicing a lot for me more than I have in a long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been working through some books. I was like religiously doing this routine that I came up with, and then for almost a year, like every day, the same routine,
Hmm.
and then working on some other stuff, trying to work on jazz chops and like learning tunes and
Yes.
improvising
Right.
and yeah. So now I'm going through another book and just trying to work on other stuff, melodious etudes and like
Awesome. Tell
taking
us.
the
I want to get the name of some of that stuff from you.
what.
Some of the books that you're working with, some you're working
Okay,
on.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the first one, um, I over the years, teachers have at various times asked me to try and doodle tongue, and I could just never do it. So I said, I'm
Hmm.
gonna finally try and do this stupid thing. I'm gonna get the book. I'm gonna get the McChesney book, and I'm gonna go page by page and do it. So I worked my way through the doodle tongue book, and I don't know if it's definitely not fully integrated into like my organic natural playing, but like I
Right.
understand the concept. I can kind of do it now.
Yeah.
And now I'm working through a book called Flexus, which was
Hmm.
written by my old teacher John McNeil, and well, co-written by McNeil and also Laurie Frank, who are both trumpet players. Um,
Okay.
Laurie just passed a couple of years ago, but she she was pretty amazing. I never got to work with her personally, but I
Hmm.
guess she was supposed to be like the chop doctor in New York. Like if all the top players, brass people, like if they had an issue, they went to Laurie, and she was
Okay.
supposedly an incredible like diagnostician for helping people
Wow.
figure it out. So I got to work with John in undergrad for 4 years. So it's been really nice going through the book and kind of relearning some stuff that I worked with him and learning some more
Hmm.
stuff and getting challenged in a different way. And it's made my embouchure and my chops feel kind of balanced in a really different way. It feels really good.
I have to
So
check this book out. Flexus, it's called.
Flexus,
Okay.
Flexus.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great. Um, yeah, so I'm currently working out of the Flexus book and just trying to work on tunes and trying to incorporate a little bit of singing into playing, trying
Okay.
to connect my voice to the instrument, trying to be more, I guess, authentic, trying to, as I learn how to become a better technician on my instrument, play more
Hmm.
notes or play higher, I want that to be an asset but not a gimmick.
Yes.
It's not about playing fast. It's not about playing high. That's just a tool. But I
Right.
want it to I want my playing to be vocal or
Sure.
to be compelling beyond just like technically impressive.
Right.
Maybe
I get that.
I can try and play something that will make a trombone player go wow, but nobody else gives a crap. Nobody knows. My mom or my partner go, I guess that sounds kind of high for you. It sounds like you're straining. I guess that's a high note. I don't know. Cool. I guess it sounds kind of fast. But they don't know. The only one who
Or
goes,
care.
trombones are, oh, like, oh, he's kind of playing there's a double F. You hear him playing the double F? Like, wow, he whipped out a G. You hear that high G? It's not about that. It's about trying to be compelling. So trying to
Right.
put the ego aside and okay, those are tools I can access part of my toolbox now, but how do I play it
Sure.
honestly and compelling? So that's
Right.
what I'm trying to do.
Okay. That's
I'm working
cool.
on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's been an hour and a half. Anything else you want to talk about? Maybe we can wrap it up soon.
Um, I think that's it. I think that's it for me, man. I do want to ask you though, what kind of horn do you play?
Yeah, when I was in high school, I went to um, Dylan Music in New Jersey, and I remember I I was trying out some horns, and there was two that I really liked there at the
Hmm.
shop. There was a Bach 12, like one of the Mount Vernon Bachs, one of these classic Bachs, and also a Wrath. And something
Hmm.
about the Wrath really called to me. I just really liked the way that it played.
Yeah.
And I've never been much of a gearhead, so I always wonder like if I was
Yeah.
in the market, like what I would choose now. But I really liked
Yeah.
the horn at the time, so I didn't even realize it was a used horn because those horns are expensive. And it
Yeah.
was a used one, and I didn't realize that the bell and the slide were actually different models. So
Hmm.
the slide I think is R2, so it's like a bigger slide, and
Hmm.
the bell is R1, so it's like a slightly smaller bell,
Hmm.
rose brass bell. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm playing on, and still waiting on a to get my mouthpiece back from Doug Elliott. I
Oh.
mailed I mailed my mouthpiece to Doug, and then he lost it, and he said he would replace it. So
Oh.
yeah, that was frustrating. I
Now,
vented about that.
why did you mail him your mouthpiece?
To get it gold plated, I really like just
Nice.
the feel of the gold mouthpiece, and
Yeah. And
the
he
it,
lost it?
he lost it. He was like, "Oh, sorry, I thought it was a different model, or it must have fallen." And it was like months I was chasing him, so I was kind of mad. But
Oh.
I finally called him really mad like a week or two ago, and he said that he would
Hmm.
give me a comparable one to what I sent him. So it's
Oh, man.
yeah, that's kind of frustrating. So I hope I'll try his mouthpiece whenever I get it, hopefully soon, and I hope I get my own
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. That would be nice.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well,
anyways,
this
looks
is
like you got your horn. Are you trying to play something right now?
no, you don't want to hear me play
I
right
want to put you on the spot, but are you trying to play
now.
something?
No, I'm not trying to play anything. I just grabbed it. Was sitting here from last night when I was doing my shedding, so just thought I would grab it. It's just nice to hold it.
Okay.
A
Okay.
little noisy too,
Oh
but
man.
no, you,
Yeah.
you don't want to hear this.
How about you? What kind of horn are you playing?
Well, as you say, I'm not much of a gearhead myself, but this was actually a gift. But when I joined Tower of Power, they got me this horn.
Wow.
It's a Yamaha. Yeah, they have endorsements with Yamaha for I guess for years. So they got me this horn. It's a Zeno.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice horn, best horn I've ever had, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's a bigger horn, big bore horn.
Right.
But I like the Bach 6.5 L for a mouthpiece.
Yeah, that's what I was using for mouthpiece.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's great. It's a sweet horn. But I played on a con forever.
Hmm.
Yeah, for a long time. And I was doing some stuff with TOP, and they saw me with my con, and they all had Yamahas. And Emilio looks at me and he goes, "We got to get you a Yamaha." I said, "Okay,
Wow.
make it happen." And so they did. So they got this for me. So
Nice. Yeah, I've
yeah,
had a couple friends recently playing those Yamaha Xeno horns, and it seemed like they really like them. They seem like nice
yeah,
horns.
very sweet, very smooth, very even across the horn. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um, oh, any plugs? Do you have any CDs, or are you trying to share anything with the public? Anything we should know about that you're working on?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a couple things that I'm working on right now. I'm trying to make sure that I come out of this COVID thing not completely empty-handed. So I've been working on this record now for a few years, really. Yeah, a few years. It's gonna be soul kind of record. Um, not sure when I'll put it out. I'll put it out independently, of course, depending on what my travel schedule is like this year or into next year even. Um, yeah, I think though that'll be the next thing that I'll put out. It's a record that I'm working on now, soul R&B kind of stuff, all original material. Um,
Did you
Kind of
already record
harkens
it?
back. Mhm.
Did you already record it?
Most of it is done. I'm still working on a couple songs, couple of tracks now. My producer and myself are working on a couple of things with one of the songs. I'm debating if I want to add any more material. I have about 11 songs now, and I'm trying to decide. The good thing about my situation, not being necessarily signed to a label or anything, I can sort of take my time. I can, sort of read the environment on what's going on and make my decisions based on that.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty close. The next step would then be to get it mastered. So I'll find a good mastering engineer and get it to him or her, and then we'll go from there and see what's to go.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Congrats. That's really
Thank you.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I haven't done a full length thing for a while. I've done a couple of gospel things over the past 8-9 years or whatever. So this will be the first R&B soul kind of record that I've done for a few years now. So I'm excited about it. Excited to get that out, get it done.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. But make sure you know about it once it's done or once it's on the horizon, once it's
Oh, for
close.
sure. For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let me know when you're playing, and I'd love to come see you. And as this Bos Bones podcast grows, I'll be happy to share whatever is going on with you within these channels that are developing here. So
That'd
let
be
me
great.
know. Keep me abreast
I
of what's
almost
happening.
Yeah, you do the same too. If you have something going on, man, let me know.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right. I'll catch you later, Ray. Thanks so much for your time. It's
Thank you, Michael.
really a great pleasure to get to meet you.
It's really great to talk to you too. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. See you later.
Take care, Michael. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. Comments, questions? Send me an email at bosbonespodcast@gmail.com. That's BOSBONES podcast@gmail.com. Or follow me on Instagram, YouTube, or Spotify. You can follow Ray on Twitter at _Ray Greene 7, or on Instagram at _Ray Greene, or Facebook at ray.green.37. That's GREENE. Trombone icon by Gregory Montagny from thenounproject.com. Special thanks to Celine and Jeffrey. Bos Bones theme written and recorded by me, Michael Prentke. After Hours recorded by Tower of Power, You Rockin' Me recorded by Ron Levy's Wild Kingdom. Again, please follow at Bos Bones on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, or visit at michaelprentke.com/Bos Bones. Thanks for listening. See you next time.